Who are we? Where do we come from? How do we know who we are? I've been haunted by these notions of origin, of identity, all of my life. And they are fed into my creative writing PhD project here at the University of Leicester. One that has been driven by various epistemological hungers. What do we know? How do we know what we know? Why is some knowledge validated more than other kinds of knowledge? And this has helped shape my project, which is called The Knowing of Fantasy. Because in truth, there is a certain fallacy in claiming omniscience about anything, and that includes PhD research. It is an ongoing project in truth, but this is what I've come up with. A creative and a critical component. My creative component is a novel, a contemporary fantasy novel, and it's about a Scottish Cherokee musician who lives near Asheville, North Carolina in America. She plays in a jobbing rock band and works part-time in a vintage record store. She doesn't lead a very healthy lifestyle. In fact, she's drinking and smoking herself into an early grave, trying to drown out the sorrow of losing her infant daughter. But then one day she receives a mysterious journal from an ancestor, a Scottish ancestor, the Reverend Robert Kirk, who actually existed. He was a 17th century Episcopalian minister who lived in Aberfoyle in the Trossachs, and is most famous for writing a monograph, The Secret Commonwealth of Elves, Fauns and Fairies, which was published after his death in 1692. And that monograph drew the attention of people like Sir Walter Scott, who published the first version of it, Andrew Lang, Marina Warner, and many, many others since then. It's an interesting figure. Well, Janie is descended from him, and according to local folklore, he is still trapped in what's called Elfheim, the other world, and only a living descendant can free him. Janie is that living descendant, but it is a big ask, and she's got lots of her own problems. But eventually she's forced to act through what John Cooper Powys calls a concatenation of imperatives. She has to go to Scotland to lay to rest the ghost of this troublesome ancestor. In doing so, she connects with her own authentic voice. She comes from a long line of gifted troubled women, seers, who have the gift of second sight, of the knowing, as it's referred to in Appalachia. And so in many ways the novel is a dramatization of creative process, because it results in Janie finding her authentic artistic voice. But it's also a fictionalization of the historical process of diasporic translocation, which saw song and tale cultures being taken from the Scottish lowlands and other places, the Highlands, Ireland, to America, in particular to the southern Appalachians, where there is to this day a Scottish and Scots-Irish diaspora. And, this process fascinated me, so my novel, brings that alive through the device of my fictional character. So that's the novel. The critical reflective essay has three main components. The first component looks at creative process, and in particular my experiential approach, which encompasses live storytelling, performance poetry, ballad singing, learning an instrument, walking, illustration, and so forth. In the form component, I look at digital writing, hyperfictionality, and transmedia elements that destabilize the conventional form of a genre novel. And in the genre component, I look in particular at ethical dimensions and offer new ethical aesthetics of fantasy, which I call golden dark. And that generally is my project, which I call The Knowing of Fantasy, a novel inquiry into form, genre, and creative process.